there's been a lot of talk about anti-Asian hate crimes. Have you weighed in on this? Have you written anything about what's going on in particular with the I guess the massage parlor and the gunman that took the lives of 8 people?
Yeah, I have weighed in, and normally I like in the course of my professional career, I almost never talk about aspects of my identity because it's not really relevant. But it's been important for me to speak out, I think, about the discourses that are happening by commentators and journalists and politicians regarding anti-Asian hate sentiment that's happening in the US. So if you look at the hate crime data, the incidents affecting Asian Americans are relatively low, very small numbers, but where they are happening and where there is an interracial difference in race between victim and perpetrator, overwhelmingly and disproportionately, it's being carried out by Black offenders. And that's an uncomfortable truth for people to talk about. In fact, most people aren't even aware of it. And I was very angry that it seemed like the only reason people in the past few months have been more willing to talk about this and create campaigns, bringing awareness to anti-Asian sentiment in the US is because they want to use it to further a narrative about white supremacy or anti-Trump or anti-Trump supporters. And oftentimes it blows up in their face because it's not true. So you have many of these incidences recently of these racist tirades and attacks that have been occurring on Asian Americans, and a lot of it's been caught on video, and you'll see that the perpetrators are not white men. They're quite disproportionately Black, which fits in with the data. You had everybody jumping in on this narrative that the shooter in Atlanta who killed 8 people was a white supremacist who was motivated to kill East Asians because 6 of the victims were East Asian women. When pretty soon after that mass attack, the local investigators, as well as the head of the FBI, came out to say there was no evidence to suggest this was motive at all. And in fact, based on what the suspect has said, it was related to his issues with sex addiction, which he had been in treatment for in a medical setting. So, and I'm also frustrated that what about the 2 other victims within the shootings who weren't of East Asian descent? Like, do they not matter in this discussion? And again, we're misdiagnosing what we should be having discussions about mental health and how that intersects, for example, with people's ability to access firearms. Another thing that people don't want to talk about is how these so-called massage parlors are usually almost always fronts for prostitution services involving migrant women. And that appears to be the case in these so-called massage parlors that were targeted by this gunman. So, instead now we're all talking about what people are putting ideas into what they think was in the mind of the killer when there's no evidence to support that. And they try to run with the similar race baiting narrative for the shooting that happened this week in Boulder, Colorado. And their only evidence initially was because of this blurry footage that came out of the suspect being apprehended. Because he has light skin, everybody assumed that he was a white supremacist or a white male. And then it turns out he's a devoutly Muslim immigrant from Syria. And so and all 10 of his victims were white people. We were all paying attention to the race of the victims in Atlanta, but is that somehow then not a way to look at the attack in Boulder? I don't think so, but it's if we're being told constantly that race is the prism for how you have to analyze all these issues, and be consistent, do it. Okay. Yeah. I don't like how the media is making all of us not just more polarized, but also more stupid. And these people who are spreading all these lies about these mass shootings on social media in viral posts and in comments and all that, they're never held account for what they do to mislead and radicalize the public.
Yeah, I think you nailed it about, the stupidity of it, because it sort of reminds me of back in college, where if I had like a paper due the next day and I hadn't done any work on it, so it's like, okay, and I was basically an English major. I was like, all right, I guess I could analyze this story through the prism of Marxist feminism and, bang out, 5 pages and hand it in, and that would be like a B- paper. And it seems like a similar thing is going on with every single thing that happens, where it needs to be seen through the prism of white supremacy, or actually it's not even that, it's the root cause must be white supremacy. So whatever mental gymnastics we need to do, they need to be done in order for this to be white supremacy. And you see, I live in New York, so the amount of hate crimes perpetrated against Jewish people here is insane, and especially in the Orthodox,
Brooklyn,
Hasidic community. And you see Orthodox Jews walking on the street being attacked by young black kids, and it's like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, that's not white supremacy. That's something else. That's something evil that's going on. It's a different type of evil, but it's happening. So maybe you could, provide more insight into this. Yeah.
If I could weigh in on that particular thing, I was also very disgusted about the way that the anti-Semitic hate crimes that were happening, many times caught on video in New York City, were being ignored because the offenders happened to be people who are Black Americans. And it doesn't just end with racist tirades. In Jersey City, there was a Black nationalist couple who went on a shooting at a synagogue and killed people. And if you look at the ideologies that they had espoused, it was blaming Jews for gentrification, claiming that they were using a lot of these historic anti-Semitic tropes around money and all that.
Right.
And it's like, I don't want to blame any particular group for hate crimes and stigmatizing the entire group. That's we recognize that as a wrong thing to do, applied obviously to Black people or to Muslims, whatever. Why does that basic human, I wouldn't even call it courtesy, this sort of just recognizing humanity of other people, why does that not apply to whites? And I think that all these really anti-white narratives and rhetorics that are being celebrated in mainstream, this is going to provoke a reaction. I mean, if you look at how a lot of these far-right white nationalists or white identity groups they organize around their grievances because of what they see of these people saying about what they perceive about their people or whatever. So it's like these so-called racial justice activists, they don't even recognize their role in radicalizing and creating extremists.